So everyone is talking about AI and jobs, right? But that whole conversation usually boils down to one simple question. Is a robot going to take my job? Well, today we're going to go a little deeper, because what if that's the wrong question entirely? We're going to move past the job numbers to look at something way more critical, something a lot of companies seem to be getting completely wrong: workplace trust. Let's peel back the headlines and find out what's really going on.
Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with those job numbers and all the noise surrounding them. Then we'll get into the real meat of the issue, this growing trust gap, and finally we'll talk about what the path forward could actually look like.
You can just feel it in the air, can't you? There's this real sense of anxiety out there, especially if you're a young person just trying to get your career started. The headlines are all doom and gloom, and it really feels like AI is to blame.
And by some measures, yeah, it is. You hear all these reports calling it a dismal job market, a black hole where you can send out hundreds of applications and hear nothing but silence. The unemployment numbers for recent grads are creeping up, and if you go online, the feeling is obvious. Something just feels different this time. So, of course, researchers are scrambling to figure out how much of this is actually AI's fault.
Okay, so to get past the general vibe, Stanford's Human-Centered AI Lab, or HAI, put out a paper to look for some cold, hard evidence. They specifically zoomed in on early career workers, people between 22 and 25, to see if they could really isolate the impact of AI. And this was the big headline. After they accounted for a bunch of other factors, they found a 13% relative drop in jobs for young people in fields that are really exposed to AI, like software development or customer service. I mean, that is a startling number. It seems to confirm everyone's biggest fears. But is it really the whole story?
And this is where it all starts to get a little bit messy. See, the researchers themselves are pretty careful not to say AI is the only thing going on, because frankly, the data right now is just incredibly noisy.
So this is the crucial point. We've got a strong correlation, but we can't say for sure it's causation. Was it really AI that caused this dip, or was it the fact that the entire tech industry slammed on the brakes after that wild hiring boom in 2021, mixed with a generally sluggish economy? It's really, really tough to pull those things apart. And if you look at the timing, it raises a huge red flag. For AI to be the main culprit, you'd have to believe that companies just instantly stopped hiring junior marketers the very same month ChatGPT was released. That just seems a little unlikely. On top of that, hiring in that exact same field bounced right back as the economy got better, which suggests it was probably tied more to the business cycle than to a robot takeover.
Okay, so if the data on job loss is still pretty murky, maybe we're focusing on the wrong thing. What if the real story here isn't about the technology replacing people, but about the relationship between people inside these companies while all this tech is being rolled out?
Economics content creator Kyla Scanlon did this fascinating survey where she asked about 2,200 workers how they actually feel about AI, and she found that most employees are kind of in this messy middle. They're not completely for it, they're not completely against it, they're thinking really hard about it, weighing the pros and cons, and yeah, they have some pretty serious concerns. And this right here, this chart just perfectly illustrates the problem. Look at that massive gap between leadership and the actual workforce. Almost 9 out of 10 executives are sure their company has an AI strategy, but you ask their employees, barely half of them agree. Now that is not a technology problem. That is a communication and a trust problem. This trust divide isn't just a bad vibe in the office. It has real, tangible consequences for any company trying to use AI. When people feel like they haven't been heard or even consulted, they don't just sit back and take it. And that leads to this, just a staggering number. 41% of Gen Z employees admit they are actively sabotaging their company's AI initiatives. I mean, think about that for a second. A massive chunk of the future workforce is actively working against what the company is trying to do. Well, it's a totally rational response to fear, right? If your company is forcing a new AI tool on you and you think you're just training your own replacement, you have absolutely zero incentive to help them out. The fear is that this new technology will make you less valuable, less creative, and ultimately unemployed. Sabotage, in that context, just becomes a form of self-preservation.
And this trust problem looks completely different depending on where you work. In healthcare, for example, AI is often seen as a helper, something that takes notes or helps with the diagnosis, so trust is pretty high, over 70%. But then you jump over to real estate and that number just plummets to 44%. The bottom line is, in most industries, over a third of workers have absolutely no trust that their employer will use AI for their benefit.
But here's the good news. Employees aren't just resisting for the sake of it. They're actually being very clear about what they need to get on board. They're not asking for AI to just go away, they're asking for a seat at the table. And a huge part of that just comes down to training. I mean, take the consulting industry, a field that is about to be totally transformed by AI. Even there, 42% of workers say they've gotten zero AI training from their employer. How can you possibly trust a strategy that you haven't even been trained to be a part of?
So what workers want is actually pretty simple. Their number one request is training and money for upskilling. And they are hopeful. They want AI to take care of the boring, repetitive work and help them be more efficient. They're just also really worried about their career paths shrinking. They see both the promise and the peril.
All of this brings us to a really critical moment. The issue isn't the technology itself. It's about how companies choose to implement it. And right now, every single company is standing at a fork in the road.
The choice really couldn't be more stark. One path is to ignore your workers, push AI from the top down, and then deal with the inevitable resistance and sabotage. The other path, that's where you build trust, invest in your people's skills, and treat your employees like partners in this whole thing. And the stakes here could not be higher. This isn't just about company morale. The companies that figure this out, the ones that build a culture of trust and collaboration around AI, are going to have a massive competitive advantage. They're going to innovate faster and just plain perform better than the ones who are busy fighting battles inside their own walls. So, the ultimate question isn't just whether AI will affect your job, it's how is your organization handling this transition? Is it building bridges of trust, or is it building walls of fear? The answer to that question will probably define its future and yours.